It's been about more than a week since Memphis Police Department released the body cam footage of Tyrenichols' encounter with the law enforcement there in Memphis. Now, the police chief had cautioned everybody beforehand that the video would stir up some anger. And it should have, straight up. Now, I know that a lot of people refuse to watch it because it's like an ongoing, wrenching display of black grief. So, of course, as normal, we protesting again. And there seems to be a few sparingly conversations that are being stirred up, once again, about police brutality. But not just about that, right? But the nature of institutional and organizational racism. This is a conversation that didn't need to be had. But see, we're now being forced to. But I notice in the mix of this anti-black sentiment, amongst black people themselves. Here you have 4 brothers who brutally beat this young black man. That in itself is disturbing. But something that I've noticed throughout the conversations that are being had, there are a few that are not being had. And you all know, that's what I always talk about. That's what I always bring to the forefront. The uncut truth. The conversations we should be having. I'm your host, Sam J. And this is Black Men in Suits, Urban Nation. So one of the things you may notice is that it took me a while to do this one. And that was on purpose because I couldn't stomach talking about it at the time because the words that I wanted to use, I decided not to use them in my recordings. And no, they're not just words of of coarse language, but just words of, that could be used in the future as if I'm being anti-black myself, right? And so I wanted to take some time before I talk about that, before I started this particular one, because it disturbed me in so many ways. From the beginning to the end, just like all others. First and foremost, anything that happens to anybody that's innocent is a travesty and very disgusting. Any type of acts like that, bullying, beating on somebody who is innocent or helpless, is downright despicable. period. But amongst this ignorance, here we have 4 or 5 black men. It was 5, right? Who participated in beating this young black man to death, literally. Literally. Now, the conversations that should be had, there's a lot of talk going on. There's a lot of conversations being had out there. But a few things disturb me. One, just like every other conversation that's out there, I don't hear any other black men standing on their disposition about this despicable act. Now, I want y'all to peep game, you feel me? Because some may say, well, D.L. Hughley talked about it. They would proceed to list names of people who are in entertainment who have spoken on it. But notice those who have spoken on it only spoke about the surface dynamics of it. And that is basically repeating the news headline. It's time that we hear these brothers and sisters who are on these platforms speak the uncut truth. Now, we get it. I think we all kind of understand the format now. Our people in entertainment, they take their jobs very seriously, as they should. And so you rarely are going to hear anything from the heart. Most of everything you hear is going to always be whitewashed, comical. So I think we've understand, and we may not, I think we've understand to move past that expectation. And now it's not to say that it's not to say that they shouldn't be talking about it in depth, right? But we get it, But there are plenty more out there, especially like these other black podcasts, such as myself, right? You have the freedom. That's the beauty of the podcast society, is that you have the freedom of speech tip literally at the palm of your hand now, where you can, what you're not hearing on the Breakfast Club, what you're not hearing on 95 South, you should be able to turn to your favorite creator and hear them talk about, especially when we talk about this situation, you should hear them talk about how despicable, how weenie-ish, how suckerish, whatever name that you can come up with applies to all of those gentlemen involved with that young man's death. Point blank, period. I don't even think we have to even get on what should happen to them, because that should be a no-brainer, just like any other case. Now, what we should be talking about the reason why you're not hearing your favorite creator or your favorite entertainer speak in depth about what happened to this young man. Because one of the scariest truths that's out here in our communities is that you know somebody, a brother or a sister, who's in law enforcement, who acts just like those black men who murdered that young man. If you know somebody in law enforcement and you from around the way, you got a partner, or you know somebody, or you've had an encounter with another black officer who had the same kind of filthy mouth that those young men had. And that was one of the most noticeable things when I watched the video. The first thing I noticed were the language they were using. And I already knew right then. I didn't even have to, watch it even further, even though I did watch it, further for more detail of it. But I didn't even have to go any further because the first thing that popped in my mind is, boy, that's the typical characteristics of a lot of these young police officers, especially, and even some of the older ones. Now, I could use examples where, like, if you ever been to a nightclub and they've had, not just security officers, or where they may have had, law enforcement there as, security. You've encountered that the unprofessionalism with dealing with them. And I even got a homeboy. Well, he ain't even a homeboy no more. I should say it like that. I had a guy that I used to be real good friends with. We fell out. Well, we didn't fall out. I should say it like that, right? I stopped dealing with him because it was just, after years of, how you know somebody for quite a bit, and at each stage of your life, you begin to really settle in your maturity, your growth, and you look at some of the positive things and the negative things of energies around you. And so when I got to him as an evaluation, just socialization, I would always remember how his character was, how he would talk, how he would act, So whenever he was around us, he would always have these stories about how he done kicked in some door, how he done arrested another black brother, how he done did him, you know. And when we was 5, 6 years younger, right? At that time, usually in the moment, you're not truly taking in. You're taking in the conversation, but you're not really dissecting the personality trait of that. Like you're not thinking of, damn dog, are you really out there treating another black man like that? You know, because in hindsight, you're taking their story for what it's worth, right? And in most cases, they tell their narrative about their encounter, and this person may seem very dangerous. Because let's be real, there are a lot of ignorant people out there who don't deserve respect. Respect is earned. They don't deserve to be talked to nice. You know, that's real. However, given what we have been through as a people, it is important, it's imperative that if you have brown skin, when you are in those positions of authority, that you make a name for yourself in the most positive way. It's imperative. No, reason being is because if you're around any kid, if you know any young child that knows you, you don't know which one of them are looking up to you. You just never know. And in many cases, you are going to have some young children looking up to you, period, just off the strength that our children need role models. And just children in general, they grow up. You have role models as children growing up. That's a natural order of development. That's natural. And so when you are in leadership position of any magnitude, it's imperative that you present yourself in the most respectful and dignified manner. But what I find that is going on is that we're in this tunnel vision of shameless, where we're just out here acting any kind of way. Anything that the first thing that comes to our mind, that's how we act. We think it's cool, and again, um, I began to analyze this, just through, looking back on my mature development. It's just like, hey, and so at first it was just a thought, but then we got together recently, just hanging out as black men. And what I found in that gathering, and it was a very sad thought process, a very sad revelation, was that black men, we are really out here operating recklessly. We don't see the average, and I'm talking about the average. I'm not talking about those that are at a certain level of tenure, but average black man is walking around here with so much other ignorance on their mind that they're just walking into danger daily. Daily. And so we got together, and here we are in our 40s. And the first thing he wants to talk about is telling us a story again about his day in life as a police officer and what he had to do. And once again, he comes with this story of how he had to kick in the door, how he had to choke another young black man. And so immediately, I was done with the conversation. I told him right then and there, straight up like that. Like, bruh, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I said, man, as a black man, I can't sit here and listen to you talk that foolishness. You know, now the other guys, they ain't care. They ain't give a damn. But that's also another, it was also another alarming revelation as well. And I'll get to that in a moment. But I had to tell them how I felt, you know. And so in many ways, uh, you know how when you look back at hindsight and you sit back and sometimes you say, man, I shouldn't have went off on him like that. But playtime is over. That shit is over. We're at a pivotal turning point in our lineage right now. We're about to, as somewhere we've got this, we've taken we've taken the strength of our melanin way too deep. And we really don't think we won't die out. But we're about to. We're perishing. And I'm talking about mentally. The very things that we're talking about, that we see, that you see a lot of people advocating for, especially like when it comes to education, and it's like they're trying to wipe us out. Look at it. That's what's exactly about to happen. In about 30 years, 40 years, you're about to have a a world of walking zombies. And only the ones that are illuminated are going to be the people who, well, the generation who is the passed down generation of those who created it, who orchestrated it. But needless to say, getting back to that, I went off on him so bad that he got up and left. And he should have. And so not only when I processed the fact of how here this brother is in his 40s, in a position of law enforcement to where he can really help people, and he's being an agitator, he's being an asshole, he's being oh, I gotta put my hands on him. He has that mentality of he gotta put his hands on somebody, on another brother. And we talk about another, and we say that, right? But you putting your hands on anybody is ignorance, period, if it isn't mandated. But given the fact that your position, your demographics is that you are around more young black brothers and sisters than you are anything, that highlights your ignorance on so much of a bigger level. And so not only did I sat back and marinated that fact, but then I also thought about how the other brothers who was out, they seemed to have no problem with the conversation. They seemed to not see that as an issue. because their words will be, their mentality is in the same level of ignorance. You know, and I think that's another conversation that are not being had that we need to be having. Those who sit back and don't say a damn thing because their mindset is, oh, it ain't me, or oh, that's just who they are. Kill that shit. You know, your silence is perpetuating that ignorance even further. Because these same silent people are the ones who not voting, not speaking up about the crimes in their community, not speaking up about uh, miseducation. But then the minute something happens to them, the minute something is not going their way, they now feel or want to have the same sympathy and enlightenment of people's arms being open to uh, accept them and have sympathy for them. It never fails. But I'm telling you now, if you got somebody you know that's out there like that, call their ass out. That's what has to happen. And you don't have to be Kurt to call somebody out. You know, you can just simply tell them, hey, what do you think about this? Engage them into those conversations. Get them started, get the mindset, get the mind flowing. And my importance of saying that is engage your people. Get to know what kind of vibrations your people are on. Because this right here, that right there, will change our world. If we begin to truly operate from the vibrations of people who vibrate like us, a lot of positive changes will happen. Slowly, but they will happen. The reason we have so much disconnect now is because everybody is all over the place. Everybody's emotions is all over the place. And the reason why everybody's emotions are all over the place is because you have people who are in spaces they're not supposed to be in. They're around people they're not supposed to be around anymore. You know, or learning the craft of not to dumb yourself down, right? But learning the craft of knowing who has a strength in a certain area that flows like yours. So with that, I talk about um, just how I'm giving that example. So I gave example of that story just to discuss how what's even scarier about what happened to Tyre is that I am positive that it has happened before and it's happening right now and it's going to happen in the future. Now we're at a pivotal moment here to really strike a chord with that mindset amongst those who wear their blue badge who got brown skin. Now, I'm sure there's split conversations about what should happen to these brothers. But there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. But regardless how the justice system handles it, the community should be even more so detrimental with how they're welcomed. You feel me? But there's so many other young black officers like those young men that is wearing a badge right now on the beat, on the clock, having the same conversation and plotting to do the same shit. But it's time we nip that shit in the bud. And I know there are a lot of platforms quiet right now because they know somebody. They know somebody. They got a relative, a friend, you name it, who they know act just like them young men were acting in that video. And so everybody's scared to say something. They scared. They're scared their homeboys gonna hear it. Scared their homies gonna see it. Their homegirls, whatever, you name it. Scared they gonna hear it or see it, and they not gonna be friends anymore. Fuck that shit. We take too much off of people. We allow too much. Don't say enough. And although there's a lot of strength in some of the movements that we have going on, there's nobody talking about the uncut truth. You all have witnessed that police brutality is on a far more cascaded scale than racism. It's organizational, institutional. It's the mentality behind authority. It's the mentality behind hate. It's mentality behind self-consciousness. It's the mentality behind ignorance. racism gonna always exist in everything that we are around in this society. And it's time we stop giving levels of passes. These young black men should never see the light of day. And to those communities who have allowed those white officers to get bare minimum time or to get off on those cases previously, your community leaders need to be doing more. It is just that simple. One of the biggest problems we have is that our communities, people, our community leaders are allowing and I'm telling you, they are allowing the outcome of those cases. Y'all got to start standing up to that. Because people in Europe can't protest in Europe about what's going on in Chicago, and y'all think some shit gonna happen in Chicago, gonna turn around overnight in Chicago. You feel what I'm saying? Like, well, what happened to Flandreau Castile? Those community leaders in that community. Those community leaders in that community should have made sure that the DA put that man away. Period. And when they get off like they do, they should never have a happy life. Period. They should never be comfortable. Know where they lay their head. You gotta stop allowing that shit, man. But just like I mentioned earlier, one of the most scariest things that you guys are about to witness is that there are 1 million more black men on the police force, just like those young black men that did that to Tyre. So I'm telling you, they should definitely be made an example of. Period. And that's the uncut truth.